Welcome back. Now, do you enjoy it black and strong or just white and creamy? Coffee Lovers Tomorrow is an opportunity to indulge in your favorite everyday drink. The 1st of October is International Coffee Day, a day that aims to promote and celebrate coffee as a beverage worldwide. It's understood 2/3 of South Africans start their day with a cup of coffee, and over 2.25 billion cups of coffee are consumed daily around the world. That's a lot of coffee. Let's chat more about this. I am joined by Andrew Fulton, a director at 8020, a consulting company. Thank you so much for your time, Andrew. It's a lot of coffee that's consumed every single day, but it is to be expected because it is one of the most famous beverages, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a beverage that's been around for a very long time. It goes back to sort of the 16th, 15th century. Yeah, and as you said, 2.25 billion cups of coffee drunk per day is quite an astronomical amount drunk. You know. How
many cups have you had today?
I just had two, hey? But and I can't drink this late at night, otherwise I don't sleep. But yeah, it certainly is one of my favorite beverages. It gets me going in the day.
Certainly. Let's just speak about the origins of coffee. Many say that it actually originated from Africa.
Yeah, I mean, there's a legend that an Ethiopian goat herder noticed that his goats were eating from a certain tree, this berry from a certain tree, and then they wouldn't sleep, and they were very, very active. So he went back to a monastery, and one of the abbots made a drink out of these berries and found that he could stay up a bit later and do his prayers and focus a bit more. So started in Ethiopia and then moved to the Middle East, and then there throughout the rest of the world to where now, you know, you've got a chain like Starbucks, which I think like 36,000 stores around the world. So it's quite a, you know, a global phenomenon.
Certainly. I want to also just speak about the issue around tea. Many would say that people drink a lot more tea than they do coffee because of how much caffeine is in coffee and the impact that it has. I mean, you just mentioned now that you can't have coffee too late at night because you won't sleep. And I know when I have a really hectic day or I have to do like shows in the evening, then I'll have coffee this time of the night and then I'm up until like 2, 3 in the morning. But what is the thing around tea? Do we see more people drinking tea in South Africa, especially in South Africa, or is it more coffee?
Well, what is interesting about that is, you know, survey data, it can give you part of the picture, but sometimes not all of it. So the survey we use is called MAPS, and it interviews 20,000 people every quarter. And the question is actually, have you consumed this beverage yesterday? And it still does ask how many cups you would consume, but that's the kind of metric we use. And from that, we find that 21.7 million have consumed some type of coffee. But if you think about that, that's instant coffee, that's ground beans, that's capsules, you know, it's instant cappuccinos, and about 18.6 million drink tea. So there are fewer people who say they drink tea in South Africa, but they might have 3 or 4 cups a day. So the volumes could be larger with tea. Definitely.
Are you able to tell us what's the most popular coffee drink in South Africa, especially because, for example, in Greece, it's frappe and also Greek coffee, but frappe is really popular. And I must say that you cannot find that in South Africa. People can try, but it's just not the same. What is it here in South Africa?
So here it's actually a brand you've probably heard of called Coffee. So half of all coffee drinkers drink coffee on a daily basis. Yeah. And what's interesting is there's legislation now that says that coffee actually isn't coffee because it's only 25% proper coffee. The rest is chicory and other carbohydrates and starches. So it doesn't classify. Funny thing, our number one coffee brand isn't actually coffee. But what I was quite surprised at, because I drink ground, I've got a ritual where I grind my beans and I put into a mocha pot, and it's a big part of my day. Only about 1.4 million South Africans drink ground bean coffee, which is amazing when you think that they seem to be opening up bootleggers every 5 minutes. And you know, there's so many coffee shops, Starbucks, Vita, Woolies around South Africa. But it's, you know, a quarter of that consumption is the wealthiest segment of South Africa. So it seems like most of that ground coffee is being drunk by the wealthier South Africans, whereas the most of South Africa, it's Coffee, then Frisca, and then Jacobs. But Coffee outsells Frisca and Jacobs more than both of those put together.
I cannot believe people drink Greek coffee. I mean, that is not coffee, as you've just mentioned. That's really shocking. But as you mentioned, it also speaks to the kind of markets. Maybe just briefly tell us about the coffee markets in South Africa, because you speak about more of the affluent areas drinking different kinds of coffee, and it's a smaller market, if I can call it that. But maybe in just summary, what is the coffee market in South Africa? How much is it actually worth? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, the way that we look at it in terms of the segments that we're looking at, there's a metric called LSM, which is Living Standards Measure. There's also another metric called SEM that's also used, but they divide South Africa into 10 different rankings of asset ownership or wealth. And as I said, ground coffee is definitely the wealthiest segments who are drinking that, followed by those instant cappuccinos, which are actual coffee. And then followed by that, it's sort of instant coffee. But when you're into instant coffee, it's 80% people that are LSM 7 or lower, which is kind of your middle class and down. But then, the drink that's most drunk by the masses of South Africa is actually tea. Second only to rooibos. Rooibos is sort of second after regular tea.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's really fascinating, but we should really not be drinking coffee. Thank you so much for your time this evening. We appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you so much. That was Andrew Fulton, who's a director at 8020, a consulting company. And can you believe that the majority of South Africans that do drink coffee drink Greek coffee? I mean, we really need to do better.